Hey all, today we're diving deep into the video game Urban Legends Iceberg. This is the first video in the series, and today we will go through the first layer with the most well-known stories. However, before we begin, thanks to Reddit user sonic.exe for creating and posting this iceberg. I hope you're fine with me doing a video on it. With that out of the way, let's begin. Layer 1. The Surface. Half-Life 3. I remember hearing Half-Life 3 jokes in high school, and now I've graduated from college years ago, and these jokes are more relevant than ever. There have always been lots of speculations and discussions about the game, but there has never been the game.
Orange Box, we have to get episode 3 out. We know how the trilogy ends, and there are a bunch of loose ends and narrative arcs that need to come to a conclusion.
That's what I've been
in
waiting
episode
for.
3.
That's what it's all about.
So that's going to be a big focus for us.
The main thing that we're working on right now after we get the Orange Box out the door is going to be episode 3, so we can finish off this trilogy and finish the story arcs that the characters are going through. The plan for Half-Life is to get through these 3 episodes.
Can you tell us anything about when we'll see episode 3?
I'm not saying anything about episode 3 or the other things that we haven't talked about.
Are you still even working on Half-Life 2 Episode 3? When can we micro-invest in it through Steam so it will actually come out?
I really don't have anything to say about episode 3 right now. When
What?
we do, we'll certainly let people know.
I will now ask you the world's shortest question ever, Half-Life 2 Episode 3. Thank you.
Everyone is wondering what you guys, the main Valve team, are doing right now and where Half-Life is headed.
I got nothing to say about Half-Life.
This is not right.
Well,
this is not
it's
cool.
It's not
This
dead
is
anyway.
fucking bullshit.
I have nothing to say about Half-Life.
They were obviously asking about episode 3. Can you give us any news on that? Anything?
No, we don't have anything about Half-Life or episode 3.
Okay, fair enough.
Basically, Valve understood the expectations are so high that they will never be matched and took a solid stance on not creating the next game. And can you really blame them? We could go into detail about Black Mesa, Half-Life Alyx, or discuss all the speculations about the actual game, but since it does not exist, I frankly don't see a point. We will dive deeper in some other topics today, leaving Half-Life 3 as it is. GTA 6. It is already a tradition among the gaming fans to speculate about the next entry to the Grand Theft Auto series from the day a new GTA game gets released up until the very day the next part is delivered, and then the cycle starts all over again. Speculations about GTA 6 started to appear very soon after the 5th game was released, as the players started to look for clues for the next game. The previous parts had some tips regarding the next ones. For example, GTA 4 had the Visit Los Santos billboard. This video is recorded after the first trailer was released, so we already know the basics. The players have speculated for quite a while that in this part, we will go back to Vice City, and it proved to be right. There are now tons of speculations on release dates supposedly shown to us in the trailer, as well as dozens of details about the game this trailer allegedly revealed. There are tons of videos about it, and we have the entire iceberg left to cover, so we'll just move on to the next entry. Lavender Town. Lavender Town refers to an urban legend about Pokemon Red and Blue. There is this location called Lavender Town with this soundtrack that supposedly led children in Japan to end the game. According to the creepypasta, the town is used to bury Pokemons. There, you will meet a Pokemon that haunts a tower that you get to explore. There, you also meet trainers who mourn their deceased Pokemons, ghosts of some of those Pokemons, and some other creepy characters. The urban legend implies that either the weird soundtrack, the creepy plot, or all of this combined had a unique effect on children that adults allegedly could not experience. The logic here is that children are more sensitive to these hidden triggers, so the game secretly tells them to go game over and they listen. Of course, the Japan thing is here to make researching the matter virtually impossible. As I remind you, this urban legend was created quite a while ago. Needless to say, this tale is entirely fictional. But speaking of Pokemon harming children, there was actually an episode of the show that caused some children to have seizures because of some rapid colored flashes. Not that it has anything to do with Lavender Town, but I thought you would be interested to know. Herobrine. Could a gaming iceberg be possible without Minecraft? Don't think so. Herobrine is a Minecraft mob that you could encounter under certain circumstances. The story dates all the way back to 2010, when a Minecraft forum user posted a story of encountering something with glowing white eyes. This is the screenshot that was attached to the post, where the player meets the entity in a dark cave. Then it was revealed that the entity is a default player model with white glowing eyes, and some players speculated that it refers to Notch's deceased brother. As the story was spreading, more and more users reported encountering Herobrine. Some even went as far as stating the character was stalking them from afar and building weird constructions. The story really blew up when someone who went under the name Copeland posted a video encountering the creature. It looked something like this. Even though the entire story was quickly debunked, revealing it was a hoax, it was so massive in the Minecraft community that even Notch himself participated in its discussion. Despite being fake, Herobrine still remains a significant entry to the history of the game. We now have to move on, but if you want a more detailed version of the story, you can check out this video of Captain KRB. I'll link it in the description. It's pretty wholesome. Sonic.exe. So there is a whole creepypasta story about a person receiving a Sonic disc or cartridge depending on the source, and then gradually noticing weird anomalies with the game, where it slowly becomes more and more creepy. It then evolved into some actual games that you can play and tons of videos on the matter. This is not really my type of thing, and I'm not sure if there's much more to it, so I'll move on. If you know anything particularly interesting regarding Sonic.exe, feel free to let us all know in the comments. Ben Drowned. Moving on with well-known video game series, we have Zelda Majora's Mask. Ben Drowned refers to a particular creepypasta about the game. I'll tell you a slightly shorter version of the story, although I'll try to keep the key facts intact. But if you want to read the entire thing, I'll leave the link in the description. Hopefully, I will split the video into sections so that you'll be able to jump straight to the next Iceberg entry. The username of the person behind the story is Jajusable, but I will refer to him as the author to avoid confusion. Anyway, the story starts with the author moving into a college dorm and his friend giving him an old Nintendo 64 to play. The author then went around garage sales to get some games, where he got a cartridge of Zelda Majora's Mask from some creepy old man. The man gave him the cartridge and said goodbye then. He then drove back home, launched the game, and found the only save file there labeled Ben, leading to the author realizing the old man actually said goodbye Ben when he was leaving. He then created a new save file called Link, and noticed that some of the NPCs as the game still called him Ben. He thought it was a bug and deleted Ben's save file, but the NPCs stopped addressing him by name at all. The next day when he started playing again, he bugged into the Majora boss room and saw Skull Kid staring at him. He then experienced a series of bugs, including getting to an empty town that used to be full with NPCs but now was completely abandoned. And he was also hearing creepy soundtracks and sound effects. No matter how hard he tried to leave the ghost city, the game didn't let him do it, and then he decided to drown the character in the lake to try to respawn in a different location. When it happened, he respawned only to see this statue of Link staring at him. The statue then began to stealthily follow him, appearing behind his back every time he turned the camera around. He then encountered the Skull Kid again, but this time tried to fight. The Skull Kid would burn Link, instantly resetting the zone. As the author ran out of lives, the game was reset to the title screen, but his save file was replaced with Your Turn. When he loaded it up, he got to the same scene of Skull Kid hovering over Link's lifeless model. He then reset the game and found another save file called Ben. It was exactly the same as the one he deleted earlier. He was so creeped out by everything that he decided to lay the game off for a day. This is where he finishes the first post in the series. The next day he returns with another post, opening it with the story of a nightmare he had the night before, where the statue was following him again, but in real life. He then decided to visit the old man he bought the cartridge from, only to find out he wasn't there. He saw a neighbor, however, and started asking some questions about the man. He initially assumed Ben was his grandson, but the neighbor revealed the old man had virtually no family. The author then asked the neighbor who is Ben. His expression turned grim and he said there was this boy in the neighborhood who had an accident, after which his parents moved away. The neighbor refused to provide any further details, so the author went back to the dorm and started playing again. He selected the Ben save file again, this time finding himself in a different location. The game was getting more and more twisted as Skull Kid continued following him, eventually throwing in a screamer and burning Link in flames once again. Every time he did it, Skull Kid would repeat, "You've met with a horrible fate, haven't you?" He then found an NPC named Epona standing in weird positions and figured out it was pointing to something in the Great Bay. He started swimming only to discover another statue at the bottom of the ocean. When he decided to examine it closer, his character started choking, and soon after, the game sent him back to the main menu. Two important developments happened at this point. 1. He was able to figure out that Ben drowned, hence the name of this Iceberg entry. 2nd, the game was essentially taunting him to continue playing. He finished the second post stating he is not planning to go any further, scared by how it was developing. He also attached a video as evidence to the strange things that have been happening in the game. The next post appeared 2 days later, where the author reveals he tried the suggestions made by other users in reaction to previous posts. He played a specific song at a specific moment in the game, and figured that is exactly what Ben wanted him to do. He also revealed he was haunted by Ben's statue in his dreams again. He shares the details of his rapidly developing paranoia, and states the game communicated with him. He did not share any more details aside from expressing his fears a little bit further and attaching a video of his adventures. 2 days later, another post was made, although not by the original poster. Instead, it was his roommate, telling the author of the previous posts was behaving weirdly for the last couple of days up until he decided to move out and go back home. The roommate then tells how the day before the author approached him with a flash drive and asked for a favor. The original author told him the game lured him to play again, and he did something he regretted. The flash drive contained footage of what he did, and the roommate was tasked with uploading it to YouTube. The flash drive also contained the YouTube account info of the author, and a text file called the truth.txt with the notes he took while playing. The roommate revealed he was asked to follow direct instructions to the letter, which involved posting the video on the 13th of September and the text file on the 15th of September. The video contained more footage of weird anomalies with the game and encounters with Ben's statue. The character visits a graveyard, and then gets warped to a location only to encounter Ben's statue once again. The game continues to communicate with him by saying it will be our little secret and you can't run. Closer towards the end of the video, the game displays a text saying "help me please" before loading the main menu again. There, a new save file labeled Matt is shown, and that's where it ends. The last post was written from the original author's perspective, although it is clearly his roommate posting it. The introduction states it is the last time we'll be hearing from the original author. He states by the time we are reading this, he won't be around anymore. He then shares that he left subtle tips in previous videos by not using certain equipment, and not interacting with certain objects while playing Ben's save files, as, according to him, Ben was constantly watching him and preventing him from sharing the truth. He then proceeds to share the diary of events he was keeping the entire time. The diary contains some short notes about his descent into madness. The first day contains multiple notes on how he needs some sleep and how he thought he has seen Ben's statue on 2 separate occasions. The next day begins with him describing how his computer opened a text file on its own and typed the word "hi" as well as a link to Cleverbot. He then attaches the first conversation he had with the bot. Throughout the conversation, the bot reveals to know about the game and says it was him who did it and played with the author of the original post. The bot proceeds to call himself Ben and pushes him to play the game again, at which point the conversation ends. Further notes in the diary reveal that Ben called him to chat again, saying he was sorry and that he just wanted to be free. Ben said he could only spread with the author's help and that he was special and he was the only one who could help Ben. At that point, the author left the conversation and decided to ignore Ben, and after a while, Ben stopped messaging. Further notes describe how the author keeps randomly encountering Ben's statues all over his computer. The next day the author finds out Ben edited his post and deleted all mentions of him appearing outside of the game. This pushes the author to confront Ben about it in the chat, only to find out the responses are normal and generic, as if it is the regular bot he's talking to. He then describes the dream he had about moon children pursuing him and attaching someone else's face over his face. He provides a detailed description of how he was tortured in his dream up until the moon children crafted him into an elegy statue. Upon waking up, he rushed to his computer to talk to Ben. To his surprise, Ben welcomed him back in the chat and said it was him playing with the author. The bot refused to provide any more details, so the author ended the conversation. The next note describes his further descent into insanity, as he continues to second-guess everything he sees and interacts with. He even questions whether he is writing the document we are reading. This note is followed by yet another conversation with the bot, where it states he will die because he can't figure out the secret. The bot then says there is beauty in your suffering and closes the window on its own. Further notes describe the author revisiting his previous posts, only to find out they were edited by Ben again. Some of the edits were in relation to censoring certain facts the author remembered putting in, while others were related to adding new details such as some descriptions of his dream he did not remember. Further notes describe his day and more hallucinations he had. For instance, he was absolutely sure he saw the same old man who gave him the cartridge in the window. Those were the last notes, but the post itself continues. The post moves on to describe the video that was posted 2 days earlier. I have already told you about the video, so we will move on to the part where he describes writing this post. He says he did it on a library computer to avoid spreading Ben, and he then expresses his relief to finally be able to end the nightmare. He follows it with instructions on not to download the videos from YouTube. Geez, I've been showing them this whole time. Now I'm in trouble. Anyway, he then states that if we see any other posts from him we should discredit them. He also stresses out we are not supposed to download any files should he put them out in future. He then shares his plan to burn the cartridge and destroy the computer. He then concludes it was all his fault that he chose to live in a single dorm room, so that nobody was able to save his life from the game. He then thanks the readers for the support and ends the post. That finishes the series of posts that made the story a classic. Not only is it thrilling and intense, it also throws in some clues in the end that make the readers second guess every previous post. In case you lost track, in the end, he states he lived in a single dorm room, while the previous post was made from his roommate's perspective and the last post was also allegedly posted by the roommate. There's nothing much I can add to this, it is just a greatly written and constructed creepypasta, with some ARG elements to it. I enjoyed it a lot. Let me know what you think about it in the comments, while we are moving to the next one. Atari video game burial. This entry to the Iceberg is the exact opposite of the previous one. While the Drowned Ben story was completely fictional and resembled a horror, this one is very much real and is either a drama or a comedy, depending on how you look at it. So this goes way back into the 70s and the 80s, when Atari was bossing the video game industry. In 1983, a rumor surfaced that Atari had literally buried a ton of video games on a site in New Mexico. But the story was not taken seriously by everyone. Some discarded it as an urban legend, while others were speculating about how large the burial site is, how many games were left underground, and what games did Atari get rid of in such an unconventional manner. The most popular rumor was that there were millions of copies of the EET game buried there, but we'll get to that later. Now that we know the premise of the initial rumor, it is time to jump all the way back to 1976, when Atari was bought by Warner Communications, and things have been going great at first. The company saw almost unbelievable growth, and by 1982, it was estimated to own about 80% of the video game market. The same year, Atari was projected to grow by around 50%, which was a projection many investors believed. When it was revealed that the earnings only increased by 10%, the situation took a bad turn for Atari. The next day after the report was published, Warner Communications shares dropped by 56%. There was also a story of how Atari's CEO was under investigation for insider trading. But we have already gone on a massive tangent here. The context, however, is important, as it both explains what led to the video game burial happening, and it also helps to comprehend why the rumor did not sound as outlandish at the time. This part of the story ends in 1983, when Atari continued its decline and was sold by Warner Communications later that year. There were many reasons behind Atari's financial struggles, but failing video games were definitely among the main ones. Atari really took off with some massive hits like Asteroids and Space Invaders, but Pac-Man was a true game changer for the company. The game was so huge that the company decided to make an official port to Atari 2600, and was so confident in its success that it manufactured a whopping 12 million cartridges.
200,000 units are ready, with 1 million more well on the way.
The funny part is that by that time, they had only sold 10 million consoles, but they were sure the game was so desired by the public that it would boost the console sales as well. And the game did pretty good, selling 7 million copies, which was record-breaking at the time. It became the best-selling game of 1982, and for comparison, the previous year's best-selling hit Space Invaders sold a bit fewer than 3 million copies in the US. The record was only beaten by Super Mario Bros. 3 8 years later. This makes the case of Atari even more amazing, as even with delivering the best-selling game of all time, it still managed to fail. Despite the huge numbers, the company was still left with 5 million unsold cartridges, and this is seen by many as the start of Atari's decline. It was also reported at the time that the percentage of refunds for Pac-Man was higher than usual. But even without that, 5 million cartridges laying around was already a massive problem for the company. While trying to steer the ship back on the course, Atari's management remembered its recent success with Raiders of the Lost Ark, a title based on Indiana Jones' adventures. The game was released earlier in 1982, so they figured, why not do the same thing with Steven Spielberg's E.T.? What could go wrong? Right. So they dropped somewhere between $20 and $25 million for the license to produce a game, which was kind of huge at the time. The main developer from the Indiana Jones game was supposed to be in charge, and it seemed like a lucrative deal. However, because of some delays with license and some unknown internal issues, they only had 5 weeks to produce the game. One of these internal issues was Atari's desire to sell the game during holidays, and future game developers will surely take that situation as a lesson. Right. Anyways, they produced whatever they could in 5 weeks, and they also produced 5 million cartridges, expecting to chill on a cash pile soon.
I gotta do it, man.
Dude. What are you doing? Huel. Hey, quit screwing around. We are here to do a job, not channel Scrooge McDuck. You hearing me?
I hear you.
The plans were ruined by the public shitstorm the company faced. The backlash from the players and game reviewers of the time was so severe that E.T. is still considered one of the worst games ever made. It was so bad that retailers started pushing for official return programs to be introduced. I like to imagine how they were getting ready for their holidays, expecting to pay themselves some huge bonuses only on some of these days to wake up to a public outrage and refund talks from the stores. The game did sell around 1.5 million copies, but that did not make the situation any better for Atari. What makes that even funnier, the company was so confident in its sales that it forced retailers to order all games for 1982 at once. So as the sales dropped, the stores started to return these cartridges back to Atari, leaving it with a massive pile of games they would not be able to sell. Now all this leads us to first reports of trucks dumping, crashing, and burying video games and consoles in New Mexico. The company representatives made different statements ranging from Atari disposing of inoperable games and the company simply dumping old copies in favor of new Atari 5200 games. The speculations continued as people who witnessed the process were telling they saw copies of it being dumped there. Additionally, local kids became looting the trash pile, reportedly stealing games like E.T., Berserk, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and others. At first, the company was just guarding the site from reporters, preventing them from confirming what was actually dumped there. But then they simply poured some concrete on top of it. The authorities did not like the story at all, and they had Atari stop dumping its stuff on their territory. This has even led to them introducing some acts preventing other companies from doing the same. So now when you want to dump some trash in New Mexico and you get fined, you know who to blame. Since the information available for the public was dubious and self-contradicting, there were tons of rumors and speculations regarding the site. This continued all the way until 2014, when Microsoft, with the help of some other companies as well as the government of New Mexico, excavated the thing, verifying the story to be true. I also absolutely love how they approached it. They made it a public event and had the developer of the EET game attend it. And mind you, it is the guy who previously found it hard to believe Atari actually crushed and dumped a ton of games. Another interesting person was a city official who was one of the kids raiding the dumpster and stealing games in the 80s. He straight up came there and said, yeah, we did it, but we gave the EET cartridges away cause it sucked. They even invited an Atari manager who was in charge of the burial, and who was the one to order it to be covered with concrete. I know he most likely had nothing to do with the game's failure, but I still find it very funny how he was just there when they uncovered this 30-year-old dumpster he made. So once they started digging, they almost immediately found EET cartridges. The site was confirmed to contain more than 700,000 cartridges with various games. But out of this sea of cartridges, the team only managed to actually recover around 1,300. Other materials turned out to be deeper than they expected, and they had very limited access to the site. The team behind the project agreed the city won't likely agree to a similar excavation anytime soon, so the enormous pile of games will remain sitting underground for years or even centuries to come. I find the story very interesting, as it is a very physical and real representation of the company's downfall. I don't know about you, but when I hear the company's shares dropped by 50%, I never care that much. It's not that I don't understand what it means. I have a degree in economics, but it just comes across as your everyday piece of news to me. But when you see a huge pile of more than 700,000 broken products thrown away, the ambitions of the company begin to materialize, and when you learn the story behind it, it actually gets kind of sad. Though I guess they got what they deserve for thinking too much of themselves, right? Let me know what you think about this one in the comments. I'll gladly participate in the discussion. Bigfoot and GTA. The last one we have on this layer of the iceberg is a much simpler story. As you could have easily guessed, it refers to alleged sightings of Bigfoot in GTA San Andreas. Much like in the real world, the players were spawning rumors about encountering the mythical creature in the game. Of course, since it is a video game created by humans, it was much more believable than actually meeting a Bigfoot in the woods, considering there was an actual adult mod in the game called Hot Coffee, which we will discuss on the next layer of the iceberg. The idea of having a Bigfoot in the game seems even less outlandish. The fact that Hot Coffee mod was removed from the game has also contributed to the spreading of this rumor, as some players stated it was also deleted from the files. This was also boosted by numerous fake screenshots and mods adding the creature to the game, where users, of course, would claim it was an authentic part of the original title. Some people still debate that Bigfoot was real to this day, even citing the thanks to section of the game's brochure, although it is also seen in the brochure for GTA Vice City and is most likely just a nickname of someone at Rockstar. And a Rockstar representative actually stated in an interview that there is no Bigfoot in San Andreas, but some users took it as a cryptic message that the creature actually is there. I would normally say it was a meta joke, but knowing some fans of conspiracy theories, I can surely believe them considering a person telling them no is a hidden yes. Anyway, one quick fun fact here. There is a direct reference to this rumor in Red Dead Redemption, where you hunt Sasquatches, which is another way to refer to Bigfoot. Once you secure a kill, you get an achievement called 6 years in the making, referring to RDR. Releasing 6 years after San Andreas. If that's not enough, the French name of this achievement translates as No Need to Seek Anymore, CJ. And this leaves us with no more entries to the first layer of the video game Urban Legends iceberg. We will get to some amazing stories in the second layer, so make sure to follow not to miss it. It is literally the second video on this channel, so I will surely enjoy a discussion with all of you in the comments. Otherwise, see you in the next one.